Hi, Vane.
Hello.
Oh my god. I'm so excited to have you here. So you are Vanessa Almada, my first Almada guest here.
Oh my gosh, that's
Like,
true.
woo. Yeah,
Faltan 50.
I know. And I will invite all of the Almadas. They're all welcome to the podcast.
Be careful.
We might,
What
I
you
know.
wish for.
There'll be a line. We might need to do in Spanish, one of
Uh-huh.
those.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that is something that I will do. Okay. So, Bunny, you grew up in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to see what your perspective is from growing up there, because your two older siblings grew up in Caborca before going over there. And there is just a slight difference with that, and growing up with Mexican parents
Mm-hmm.
in a faraway place.
Yeah, so I was the first one in my family to be born in the States and in Seattle, like in the area. My dad got a job over there, right, and we moved. And I mean, as you know, our side of the family is all concentrated in Juarez. And so that's where my dad was born and raised. And my siblings actually were born there, and they were there for a bit. And my mom from Caborca, Sonora. And so all her family was there as well. And we were kind of the first ones to really be far, like
Mm-hmm.
out of anyone. Um, and yeah, it was always like people over in Seattle never questioned it because I think a lot of in the US, so many families are kind of used to that being like desparramados and just being on different parts of the country, right? And maybe your uncles are living like all these different places, but that's not as common for us, I think, in Mexican culture, right? And so, um, yeah, it was different, and we were kind of out there. Um, I loved Seattle. I think like I always tell people like the way that I think about it is that I was just so lucky. I always felt so lucky to be in like two worlds. I felt like I
Yeah.
was in these two extremely different places. Like going to Mexico was going to the desert, right? Chihuahuan or Sonoran desert, but with a family. And we had so many cousins on both sides of the family. So I had so much fun every time we went. And we were really lucky. My dad and my parents they were super invested in us growing up with the family, right? And still growing up close to them. So every summer we would come back for like 5 weeks, spend like
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks in Caborca, 2 3 weeks in Chihuahua. And every time we left for that summer trip, I would cry and I'd be like, no, don't take me, don't take me. Like, I want to be here with my friends in Seattle, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of the 5 weeks, I would be crying and like, no, don't take me back to Seattle. Like,
I
I want to be here
know.
with my family, with my family.
Which I remember. So I
Yeah.
was part of that second
Yeah.
crying, and we would always just be in the house like, no, don't leave us.
Yeah. It was
And
so dramatic, but
before you continue,
yeah.
it's like a core memory that I was forgotten. Just, I remember also seeing your mom and your sister, and I think you eventually ended up like, they would share like one of those extra large suitcases just for shoes. I remember like the first time, like, and it was just between both of them, and I feel
Yeah.
like Javito or your dad would be like 3 shoes for the whole like 5 weeks.
No,
But
Javi, no,
yeah,
like my little brother and my dad would share like a small carry-on
yeah,
suitcase. I remember that for years and years. And my older brother too, like Ekis. But we would come with so many suitcases, not only because it was like 5 weeks and it was a long time, whatever. We had different places we were going to, but also because we would bring like at least one just completely empty suitcase to take
to
back
fill it up.
tortillas and candy and all the things that we wanted for at least half the year because we would really only
Hmm.
be here like that chunk. So my mom would fill that up, like fill it up with just everything from here. But yeah, we came loaded.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And did it happen to you? Because this happens to me every single time that I go back home. That, I mean, I've spoken Spanish and English like all the
Mm-hmm.
time. I get on the phone with them, and I feel like that's always like a daily occurrence.
Mm-hmm.
But every time that I go for like Christmas, the 2 weeks that I come back, my English is so much worse. Like it'll take like a day or two
Yeah.
to get accustomed back to it.
You know, I don't know. I think also a very different experience than you growing up
Yeah.
with the language because, like you said, you grew up like on the border, and so you always had that experience of switching, right, and going back and forth. My life, I've tried to calculate it, and I feel like my life growing up was like 10% Spanish
Uh-huh.
because it was just in my house.
Yeah.
But school, my friends, like soccer, every activity that I did, right, everything was always in English, especially as I got older. And so what was I speaking? You know, in my house with my parents. But with my siblings, like I said, it was always English, everything. And so I was so much more comfortable in English. Like I always knew how to read Spanish, but I wasn't even like comfortable reading Spanish until
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know, maybe 10, 11, and that's so different. Like I love reading my whole life, and I was devouring books, but always in English, right? And
Yeah.
so I think I did have a different experience with that, and that's been one of the very different things now about being on the border is learning to do that adaptation. And I actually had a professor ask me recently, like, oh, do you think about it, when you speak Spanish or English? And now I'm at a point where no, like when I'm
Yeah.
with some of our cousins or with my friends, with my boyfriend, who's also from the border, I really genuinely don't think about it anymore. But it's been a process of adapting to that lifestyle and to really like that border kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, identity.
No, I don't think about it either.
Uh huh.
But it's something strange about because I grew up, yeah, in a border town, but I lived in the Mexican side
Yeah.
for the first 16 years, and I think it did take me a while to get used to speaking English because I would also just use it 10% at
Yeah.
school, or
Yeah.
like yeah, my mom would force us to watch TV in English. Um,
But it's different, and it can be really difficult. Like I have, but again, so this kind of separated us from our friends in Seattle, for example, because so many of their kids like forgot Spanish or really struggled with Spanish because they didn't have the same experience of, going back for the summer or however long with their family in Mexico. And
yeah.
that distance really takes its toll. I don't know if you remember, but there were definitely summers when we would come and our Spanish would kind of suck or like we
Yeah.
would
Well,
struggle,
that's yeah, that's what I mean. Like in the beginning, it
Yeah.
would, and then by the end, you're just getting used to it, and you're like,
Exactly.
okay, get
Yeah, yeah.
going.
But honestly, it never impacted my English because English was so strong in my life,
Uh huh.
So if anything, it helped me with my Spanish. And I'm also eternally grateful to my parents for that because, like I said, so many of our friends that we grew up with maybe struggle with it or have over the years like lost touch with Spanish, right? And my parents, like, they literally would, if we were in the house and we were speaking to them, if we said anything in English, they would literally be like, I don't know what you're saying.
Uh huh.
Like they would ignore us or just pretend, like I have no idea what you're saying. Repítelo en español. And that
Yeah.
helped so much.
No, it does. I
It
think you do need
changed
to
my
force
life,
it.
literally.
And I think like my brother too is trying to really enforce the speaking
Yeah,
Spanish in the
yeah.
house. And I think in the beginning when they first started going to school, I saw that they were struggling with the English, but also they're three,
Yeah.
like and now I see them, being able to speak both
Yeah.
languages
No, it's
fully, and
amazing. And
it's
I know that I mentioned this to you about how much language like matters to me in my life and how much it's really been a part of my adult life now. And that all comes and stems from, holding on to Spanish from when I was young and my parents doing that. And it's funny because Spanish was technically my first language. Like I
yeah.
was at home with my mom. My mom didn't speak English. And so they were just like, "Oh, you'll learn it in school." I remember learning it like through Dora. Like Dora's supposed to teach
Uh-huh.
you Spanish,
Spanish.
but I was like learning English through Dora and through
Yeah.
TV. And when I first went to preschool, I didn't really speak English, but I never struggled. Like my siblings, for example, they were older when they got to the States and they didn't speak English, so they had that like the whole ESL experience, things like that. I was very lucky in that like I never had to kind of struggle with either of them that much, just by circumstance. But it's such a blessing, such a blessing.
Oh yeah. And you mentioned that you played soccer.
Uh-huh.
I want to hear your story because I don't want this podcast to be focused on fitness, but I
Yeah.
think like fitness is a very big part of my life, and I think if you are competitive, in it, it does shape who you end up becoming and like your characteristics. So, how did you get into soccer? And soccer has always been like your main sport,
Yeah,
right?
always. It was always the sport that I loved the most, like
Mm-hmm.
easily. And I think part of what shaped that so much too was my older brother.
Yeah.
Big Barca fan since he was a kid. And so he really got me into, for any Barca fans, like our peak period, like 2008 to 2012. Like, what a tumultuous time in most of the world. But for Barca, this is like peak years. And that's what I grew up on, like watching that with him. And so that style of play, everything, like I just fell in love with it, and that shaped my love for the game and everything. And yeah, I don't know. I think growing up in sports, you see some of this now. Some of the stats are coming out about like little girls in sports and things like that. And it does shape so much of your confidence, right? It helps you really kind of realize what you're capable of, that your body can do so much more than maybe sometimes what we think and what we're told. And I think that was definitely the case. Like, I'm so glad that I did it. And I did kind of, my mom was not like outwardly angry that I did it or anything like that. But my mom would always, she wanted me to be in ballet and all these things.
Oh, yeah.
And I was always like, nah, like
Not for
soccer's my
me.
thing. Yeah. And that's what I'm going to do. And so I think it did teach me a lot of those things. And it just gives you a routine and a connection to fitness that I think without it would have been so much more difficult. Like, my body kind of craves that. And so I don't really love running, like, because I've never been someone who just like, likes to go for a run. But my body craves that sort of, because soccer is really
Feedback,
intense.
yeah.
You're running miles and miles like
Yeah.
per game, right? So I'm really appreciative of that. Like, so many things that soccer has given me, but I think more than anything, that connection to just like your body needing to move, and kind of maintaining that into adulthood.
And community too.
Yeah,
Like, just
so
like
many
all
of my
the
best
girls that you
friends
end
are.
up, yeah. And there's
Yeah.
something to be said too about like the going through hardships together with people. I know I once, like, in school, we went on a hike that we almost didn't make it out.
Wow.
And it was just like ended up being like a 4 or 5 hour just because
Yeah.
we missed an exit, and it was just a field trip. But by the end, like on the bus back to like the school, I remember all of us were just like laughing and like just the
Yeah.
connection. And I remember it just stuck from me from that moment. The teacher was like, yeah, you guys like have bonded now, and like the trauma of it. And I mean, going day in and day out in like
Yeah.
practice, you end up being, you end up hating your coach one day, or like,
Yeah, no, speaking of, like, you're talking about what kind of bonds you through this. I think that's such a formative experience for so many of us too, especially who grew up in this kind of era. As soccer was really taking off in the States, part of that has been like hiring European coaches, right? And especially English coaches. And so at the clubs that I was playing at and the clubs around me, they would bring like British men mostly, but also women and such, on visas to coach for these clubs, right? And to really develop the game and whatever. So you can ask so many women and men, that grew up in that era. And I'm sure like so many of us have had this experience of just like this angry British man, like literally traumatizing you as a 10-year-old, like bringing you to tears every practice. But you do it together. And some of those girls are still my best friends for,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
No, that reminded me of, and I just remembered his like name. His name was Poncho, and he was my gymnastics teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, growing up. And he was so strict, and he would also like, I feel like, hit you, because like, you always needed to be straight and be like, like, tighten up and point your toes.
Yeah.
It's so weird looking back at like the way that like adults treated kids.
It is. I think now we are starting to have much more open conversations
Yeah.
about that. And I think a lot of elite athletes have really brought that to the forefront. And I'm really appreciative of that, because I feel like I could have been a way different player if I had different coaching.
Yes.
That made me actually like believe in myself. Like, I wasn't really cut out for that type of just like, grr, and we're
Yeah.
going to shape you by
No.
fear into... I did it for a long time, but overall it just kept wearing down my confidence, slowly. And so what I had built up in this player that I thought I was, like, it wasn't being helped or shaped that much by that,
Yeah.
And later in high school, when I had different styles of coaching, like, I flourished so much more,
Yes. And every person is different. I don't want to like be like women and men are
Yeah,
completely different.
yeah.
Like, no, even within like, weightlifting, you'll see like different types of people, and everyone responds differently.
Yeah.
And I do see like all my guy friends, they'll be like, is that all you got?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
that's all I've got. Like, I've tried my best.
Yeah.
And I feel like a good coach will know,
Yeah,
how
and
to
I
deal
remember
with-
even then, like, it kind of bothered me because we actually did have this big blowout, with one of the coaches, because literally, like, we were 11, 12, and girls were going home crying every single practice. Like, it was
Yeah.
like, and parents were just like, enough is enough kind of thing. And so a lot of us left, but there was like a real conversation about, this is just not okay. And I remember one of the dads saying, like, these are little girls, like, you should be coaching boys if this is like your style.
But
And
even
I was like,
boys know.
I
Yeah.
remember even then, I was like, is it really acceptable for any man to be talking to any child, regardless of their gender? Literally, they would be like, F you. I remember one time I was like 13, they pulled me off the field and it was just like, F you, F you, F you. and he sat us down and like didn't put us back in for the, but we were just like scared, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's necessarily
It's
productive
formative.
for,
No,
yeah.
at all. No.
Yeah.
I don't think it is. I think just, especially for kids, it's just positive reinforcement. And it's, been proven. And I remember just going whenever we went to visit Seattle, and we would always go cheer. And also Mexican families, especially also Mexican families, but also the Almadas,
Yeah.
My dad, I remember, just like, he just goes above and beyond, and he was just like yelling. And I remember you being like, Tio, like,
No, I
these
would be
white
scared.
people don't know.
These white people did not know, and my British coach was not cool with it. Like, he would literally be like, whose family is that? I was like,
I don't
no
know.
idea. Yeah, who are those crazy people?
It's so funny because also like the World Cup recently,
Yeah.
happened, and now everyone was like tuning into like Telemundo, and they're like, oh yeah, like the Mexican announcers are just so much better, and we're like, yeah,
Yeah, we've been knowing. It's a lot more fun.
yeah, no, we are. Okay, well, going back to growing up in Seattle, and something that I spoke with Karla previously was just about like us being middle children, and even though you are technically a middle child, I feel like, well, tell me if you disagree, but I feel like you have more characteristics of like a younger child, because there's also kind of like a gap between like Pao and Javito and then you and Sebas.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I don't know, do you identify as a middle child or as a, like the personalities of it?
Yeah. I was actually wondering if the middle child thing was going to come up, and I completely agree. Like, that was exactly what I was thinking. I don't think I had at all a traditional middle child experience, but I think it completely makes sense, right? Our family, is called like an assembled family, where, my dad was their stepdad, and by the time I was born, like, I was just much more ready to accept this person as my father and whatever. And so in a way that kind of made me more into like an older sibling and the youngest, in different ways.
Yeah.
Because initially, definitely more youngest sibling energy. And when my little brother was born, it's still like, I don't feel like a lot of that attention went away, but more from my mom. I feel like my dad, it was still like, oh, his little princess and things like that. And so I don't think I really felt like, oh, I'm so like neglected and middle child and kind of forgotten and things like that. But then later, I would say that the like responsibilities shifted too, because of that age difference and such. My older brother's only 6 years older than me. Javi's, not that much older, but they left for college, my older siblings, and then it was like just me and my little brother. And so there, I would say the dynamic shifted a lot too, and it definitely wasn't like middle childs anymore. It's like, no, you're taking care of your little brother and things like that. So yeah, I've always kind of felt that for sure, that the like middle child stereotype, I never identified with it that much.
No, I mean, now that you're saying, I think like at different stages of your life, you've been something different. Like, I mean, obviously the younger, and but then the middle child maybe in like a couple of years, but yeah, I don't know, that is strange. I don't think I think a lot of us just stay with certain, I mean, we're always growing and changing, but at least for me, I feel like the middle child always stayed, and then the older, oldest daughter.
Yeah, because I think that my other siblings like definitely kind of fit their mold of what they or their position, right? My sister, very much older sister, and she got the brunt of being older sister, right? Like by the time I was, so that's why it's kind of like weird, because I had some of those responsibilities, especially with my little brother, with like, the responsibilities around the house and things that a lot of my friends definitely didn't have, and that it was like a lot of responsibility, right? And things that would maybe normally fall on the oldest child. But I didn't have the rules at all that my sister had, right?
No,
like,
you didn't. So, and me, because I'm more on Paola's, your older sister's age, and I would always hang out with her, and I was just like,
no, it was
damn, that is completely different set of rules,
right? But and obviously
family,
and obviously again, I think that my family is a little bit different, because it wasn't just like, oh, the younger children, it mixed with like a very complex kind of situation, right? And, I mean, my mom passed away when I was 12. My sister was 22, Javi 18, and Sebas was like 8. So we were all like very different ages. And so growing up with that, like that's why Silas and I did not have rules when we were older. You know, my mom was the one who would wait up and, you know, make sure that my siblings came home. Like she couldn't go to sleep without that. My dad would literally be asleep and like let me have parties in the house
Oh
because
yeah.
he's an Almada. He would sleep through everything. So it was like complete opposite. But again, that wasn't necessarily just like our age dynamic, but like how the house evolved over
Yeah.
time.
Which that just saying about like your mom waiting up also reminded me because like so you guys would go to, you know, Caborca and Ciudad Juarez for like 5 weeks. And then for a while, there was a couple of years that I went to Seattle and stayed
Yeah.
with you guys for like a month. And it was like the best time ever. It was like most of my formative
Yeah.
experiences. But I remembered Paula and I would always like sneak beers out of, you know, the house because like they had the outside garage, and so
Yeah.
like we would get like a tote bag and then just saying bye to, you know, your parents or whoever was there because they were so not popular, but like they were so social.
Yeah.
Your mom specifically.
My mom was very social.
And so there was always people around.
Yeah.
And now, you know, looking back that you're like, oh, we're so clever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, the beers were clanking.
Yeah, yeah.
As we're saying goodbye. And it's like, they obviously, you know, they're, and I mean, I don't know, 12 beers disappearing like
Yeah.
every time we would go out. Yeah, that was always just like
but
such
no,
a fun
exactly,
time.
like that was so different. For example, I remember, you know, some of my friends would have to sneak out or things like that,
Yeah.
and even my siblings, right, like go kind of be sneaky about what they were doing. I remember one time I went camping for an entire weekend, and I came back and my dad was like, oh, like, yeah, where were you? Like, he didn't even realize. So it's like, it was complete opposite end of the spectrum, right? Whereas my mom was like super,
On
like,
top of,
yeah,
yeah,
and where are you guys?
everything.
What time are you coming home? Like, didn't really let them have sleepovers for a long time. By the time I was, you know, doing all that stuff, like, there was not a lot of structure or rules around it. And yeah, to a fault, I think, at some points, you know, but it was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, no, especially when you're getting away with stuff.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
yeah, you know.
Yeah. My friends would be like, yeah, like, oh, okay, yeah, let's go to this party. Like, I have to sneak out. I would literally just walk out the front door. Like, it's, you know, it's like, yeah.
Oh no, that is fun. And I do want to talk about your mom because she's such a special person, and obviously your life, but also in my life, I think she was just one of those that it's like a second mom.
Yeah.
Especially those like months that I would go over there. Here and there, like I'll just get like these memories of like life tips that she would give me. Like one, I remember we were walking out and she just like started scolding Paola, which like she'd never almost, I mean, she spoke really loud. And she was like, you never wear, what was it? Like eyeshadow without mascara. You look like you have a black eye. But like she was just like, honestly, like probably the angriest I've seen her, you know, or like being so stern. Because she was just like, no, you have to wear mascara. And I was like, oh, life lesson, you know, always wear mascara if you're wearing eyeshadow.
That's so funny that you say that because mascara was like the first thing I ever used and was the only makeup I used for years and years. And still to this day is like, you know, if I'm doing anything, it's mascara, you know, like it's the number one. And I don't even remember that as being a life lesson from my mom. But I'm absolutely
well, yeah, it's
sure.
just so ingrained.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I do love hearing people's kind of different takes and stories that they accumulated too with her over the years. Because like I said, I mean, I was 12 when she passed.
Yeah.
And so I have my own memories and that kind of attachment. But obviously of her as my mother and like of those experiences as a family. And so I love just hearing little things too about who she was as a woman and as an adult and like just as a person herself.
And I think we have a lot of misconceptions about grief, and people just tend to like not want to talk about it. And one of the most important things that like as someone that has experienced like a lot of grief is that you want to hear about them. Like obviously every single time, especially in the beginning, it's going to be like
hard.
So painful.
Yeah.
But I feel like all of us that have had great losses agree that we want to hear about them and we want to hear how they existed in the world and they weren't just ours, you know, like.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that is one of the greatest misconceptions around death is that, you know, oh, it's too painful and we should just not talk about it or this person and it's going to be so uncomfortable for the person. But I remember like just growing up with it and I mean, to me, it was a matter of fact, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, my mother is, you know, my mom passed away. But I hated bringing it up just because of the reaction in other people. you
Yeah.
know? It's like it was always, they got so uncomfortable with it and like, oh, I'm so sorry that I brought it up. Or like going over to friends' houses and meeting their parents for the first time and, oh, your parents, what do they do? You know, and like, oh, yeah, my dad, blah, blah, blah. And my mom, yeah, passed away. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry to be, you know, and it's like,
Uh-huh.
but that's okay. I think that it is wrong to like skirt around it that much.
Yes.
And also that you as a person experiencing the grief, like then are tiptoeing around other people's
Yeah.
uncomfortableness, right,
Uh-huh.
with the subject. Whereas you say, I think it's so much better to, like I always tell people, so many of my friends, because of this kind of discomfort, don't even or didn't even know my mom's name for
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
you know, and things like that because you and my sister, for example, had this relationship and my sister's friends and everyone kind of got to meet her in that capacity. My mom got sick when I was 8, and so my friends really didn't, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so they didn't know her like as this person or anything. It's just, you know, my mother who had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, it was kind of this taboo subject, I think, for so many of them. But again, they didn't know her
And also,
name or
you're
anything
8,
about her.
you know, when she gets sick, and 12 when she passes away. So, like, it's
Yeah.
understandable that kids are not gonna know.
Yeah.
But I feel like we do need to have, like, a broader knowledge.
Yeah, especially
Yeah.
as, you know, teenagers or now adults still to
Mm-hmm.
this day, you know,
Oh,
people are
yeah.
like scared to ask. And I think we should absolutely be like asking more about these people, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's a disservice to also the people who have left us to ignore their lives, right? Because we're like worried that this is going to cause more
Mm-hmm.
sadness, where I think if anything, remembering them is what brings me joy. Like,
Yes. No,
and I
it
think
is.
that we owe it to them as well. Like,
I do think we do, to just, I don't know, keep remembering them.
yeah,
And
get over
also,
ourselves a little bit and remember, because honestly, people are so funny and so like there's so many little things. And I know, you know, we've both grown up with a lot of people who are now not with us, and it's like it's so much better to remember those
oh, it
things.
is.
And
And also, to remember, I feel like having lost so many, close people, I admire, or not admire, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but like, I don't shy away from like people's imperfections as much,
mm-hmm.
because like every single, person that has passed away, and when we're talking about it, them, we'll be like, she was so annoying, because like she always needed to be right, or he was always, doing this and that. And I feel like we also tend to do the opposite, whereas like we'll tend to just like romanticize them and be like,
Yeah,
oh, especially if also they get sick, they're
yeah,
like, oh, they were perfect and they were always fighting and they were
yeah,
always like, and I wholeheartedly disagree with doing that,
yeah,
because that's not who you are,
right,
And I feel like, yeah, like your mom was so loud and so sociable, and always cleaning, always cooking, and always being like on top of everything. And I feel like now I feel like I've noticed that like with living people, we want to correct
mm-hmm.
the things that make them different, but when they pass away, we can't. Well, at least me, I admire it, right? And it's like I feel like once it's not a problem that you need to solve, it's like, oh, I kind of love that like they were always like
Yeah,
that, and they were always opinionated, and they were always, whatever.
I agree. I think, as you say, we tend to romanticize the dead, right? And I think respecting people who are no longer with us is also important, you know, and having that level of like, yeah, maybe, I don't know. But I also think their imperfections are what made us love them, right? Like,
Yes.
that's what made them them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, to remember them in death in a way that was not really true to who they actually were, I think is
Yeah.
flawed.
Yes.
And I think, yeah,
Like neither side, right? I'm not gonna be like airing all of their secrets now.
yeah, we don't need to, you know. But as you say, like literally, my mom, I remember when I think of my mom, I just think of her like laughing, you know, with a
Yes.
beer in her hand and
Uh-huh.
these types of things. And it's like not always kind of this like romanticized image that sometimes people also have. My mom was, you know, the like life of the party type energy and everything. And so there's definitely that. And people talk about that all the time. And it's
Always with a
beautiful.
cigarette too.
Yeah, right. But she smoked and drank a lot and did all these things, and that made her who she was,
Yeah.
and it was awesome. Like
Yeah.
it's not something to be, you know. Um, yeah, I do think that we need to do a better job of that in general with, you know, people who pass. It's like they were awesome because they were all these things and because they were human and completely
Yeah.
imperfect, and that's absolutely I think what we should carry on from with them, right? Or with us, I guess,
With
of
us
them.
about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I don't know. I feel like just we're all imperfect, and as long as you're not just like hurting people, I feel like growing up is just like accepting people for who they are.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
and yeah, your mom always accepted me and treated me as one. I was the fifth one for that one month.
No, I think that
being
was
there.
my mom's best, or one of her best qualities, that I definitely try to take with me into my life, especially like now in my adult life, and really thinking about what do I want to be to people, and how do I want to be seen, whatever. And my mom really didn't judge. Like, she really just kind of took you where you were at. If you needed help, whatever it was, like if you needed a place to stay, you know what I mean? Like, she
Yeah.
was just always there for that and met you wherever you were.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is one of the most important things that you can do. As I grow up, I'm just like, being a human is hard.
It's so
It's
hard.
really difficult to
Yeah.
just exist and to, like, I don't know, like, not be self-conscious about, and be who you are and own it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think accepting people for that, and obviously there's ways to kind of go about problematic behaviors and things and whatever. It's not about like ignoring those things, but just accepting, and meeting people where they're at without judgment, I think is so huge. And my mom was so good at doing that and made everybody feel so welcome, through that capacity to just love you for whatever
Oh
you were.
yes.
So I think that is super important to me, and one of the things I take most, from her life.
Oh yeah. And one of my also like core memories and life-changing experiences too was in one of those times that I was over there. And I think I bring this up because I know language is also like something very important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up in a border town, and so I was always, Spanish at home, and then in school it was a bilingual school from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
but it was also just like there for school, right? Like you know
Yeah.
how to like write, grammar and everything. But I feel like I was always self-conscious in my English, and I think it was I think sophomore year of high school. So I had been not living, have been in a school in the US for like 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still like just for school I would speak, but then the one-to-one I struggled so much. Like it was just bad. And I remember one of those times that we went out with like Pao and Mari. And it was the times where like the Four Loco, the original, I
Oh
don't know if
my
it was the original
gosh.
formula, probably not.
Yeah.
But it was like the second version, but it was still like fully leaded or
Uh-huh.
whatever they had. And I remember we were just like passing it along, like the three of us, just like sips. And we didn't even finish it, like between the three of us, and we were already, anyway, I just remember like we were in a car before going somewhere drinking it. And I feel like after every sip, like my tongue would flow a little bit more in
Uh-huh.
English. But it's one of those things that you don't really realize.
Yeah.
And Maddie was the one that she just like mentioned it, and she was like, huh, I like it when you get drunk because you speak more English. Like you're less shy.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that like as soon as you hear it, you're like, oh, right. And then you start thinking about it, because I know like I was really self-conscious with my English, and then I started learning French in high school, and I learned it so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so good at it. I forgotten most of it. But I remember I was like, why am I speaking it with more ease
Than English. Mm-hmm.
when like I've known English since like the beginning. But I feel like that comment from her made it click, that it was like, oh, because I don't care about French. I don't
Yeah.
care about sounding dumb with
Yeah.
French. I don't, it's my third language. So okay if I have an
Mm-hmm.
accent, And like letting go of that kind of like inhibition of like being perceived as like, oh, you can't speak that language.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously with alcohol, like it removes that, right? Because
It
you don't care,
does.
and so you're just like flowing and stuff. But yeah, that comment, I remember it just changed me, because I was like, first of all, fuck that. I don't need alcohol, right? Like,
Yeah.
And if that can make me a person that
Lose
I can
that,
be that
like,
person without
shame
it.
a little bit.
Yeah.
The worry, yeah.
And yeah, it's funny how like certain things work, but like, yeah, that comment really made me let go of like my judgment to myself for
Yeah.
having an accent in English.
Yeah.
And so by letting it go, I was able to just,
Yeah.
speak it more. And I think also just because I didn't have many, like, gringo friends, like, yeah, I was in school in El Paso, but all my friends were Mexican, so we were
Yeah.
speaking Spanish.
Or like they all speak Spanish, like the friend groups, anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think,
I
like,
see that
the
now with
thing
sales.
that I just needed is kind of like learning the like and the and the speaking that is different than Spanish. And kind of like the sayings of like, oh, wait a
Yeah.
minute, or something different that, like, it's not in the textbook.
No,
You won't
everything
find it there.
exactly. And everything that you're saying is actually things I've definitely learned in my language journey. And that 100%. And this is what I tell people too when they ask, oh, but how are you able to like learn a language or how, do these things? And it's like, honestly, like first is immersion. You just have to be surrounded by it and really like dedicate the time to it to really whatever, right? But if you have that already, it's literally losing that fear of messing up because you're gonna make so many mistakes. Like I would, Spanish and English are my strongest languages, but I've heard from and I've, learned on a lot of polyglot websites and blogs and things, right? That it's really difficult to have more than one like core language. And for me, that's still English. My whole life at school, everything has always been English. And so I'll still make mistakes sometimes in Spanish, even though, if you met me on the street and we were just speaking in Spanish, like I don't, in Mexico City or wherever we are in Mexico or Spanish speaking countries, like people don't question, my Spanish, right? Or
Yeah.
anything. But I'll still make more mistakes in Spanish than in English. Writing, anything like that is still going to be easier for me in English. And you just have to let go of that fear. Like you're never going to be perfect, especially if it's not something that you've grown up with. And I also learned that so much. Like my French teacher in France, I remember she told us, I've never met anybody older than maybe 10 or who started learning the language at like older than 10, 15 in French who doesn't have an accent.
Yeah.
Again, so I just relinquished my like fear of it. And I remember, like I picked it up way quicker after kind of just losing that,
Yes. And I think also, or like a lot of things always are happening, right, and shape you. And when I was having these realizations, I was also one of my, now best friends, Caro, but in that moment we were...
like enemies or?
Yeah, we were, what's it called?
Nemesis?
Academic nemesis.
Oh.
Yes. No. And that is one of our stories that we always tell, that like we were always, in math specifically. But yeah, she, I don't know if she knew like much English, but I think like when she joined freshman year, like she was just like barely like for the first time, like going to school in English. And yeah, it like, by a certain point, like she was speaking more than me, with an accent, but it was also just me realizing like, damn, and it's just because she doesn't care, and she's never cared what people think of her, and it's something that like I highly admire of her, as opposed to me that I'm always just like, I'm being perceived.
Yeah.
I cannot live.
No, and I'm very much so like that too. I'm like I don't know, but it's funny because you do change. Like I change completely personality with every language.
Yes.
But I've also learned that you kind of have to a little bit to really be good. And so the languages that I speak are all Romance languages too.
How many languages do you speak?
I speak 5.
Nice.
And yeah.
Which are?
French, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, and English. And when you, like I learned this on this one blog and it helped me so much because I read this when I was trying to learn, I think Portuguese. So this was like a year ago. And my first like learned language for real, was Italian when I was like 19, 20. And then French was 2 years after that. And then last year I got this fellowship to go to Brazil. And that's how I really was able to engage with Portuguese in a real manner and everything. But learning Portuguese was the first time that I really started mixing languages in my head. Because
also the romantic languages too.
Yeah, but like Spanish and English, they're just kind of my core, like it's, kind of its own thing. Italian, it was like, oh, it's cool, it's new, like, it didn't really mix with the others. And French was different enough for me from Italian. But with the Portuguese, like the Portuguese and the Italian, I really, it was difficult to separate them. And I read on this guy's blog, he's like, he speaks like 8 languages. And he's like, what's helped me is really embodying the language whenever you speak it. And it's so true. Every way of speaking, like I remember just learning French and watching people's mouths and how they move and everything, and they talk like this and everything is blah, 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 and they go all the time. And you just have to take that on. And with Portuguese as well, right? Like acting a little bit more like a Brazilian and speaking with a little more flair, right? And whatever. And doing that in every language like helps you so much and helps you keep it kind of separate, and really, because you're not just learning like the words, right, and the sounds, you're learning a culture.
Yes. Well, I wish I had like specific examples of it, but also the language that you speak and the way that like that culture is formed informs the way that you react to certain things. I wish I had examples.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Let's say like I kind of want to say like in Spanish, you would say like I don't know. It was something to do with time. I don't know, just the way that you form it and the way that like different cultures have different kind of relationships with like time.
Yeah.
That it's like, well, ahorita, you know, you can never
yeah.
explain it. And I feel like that is something also very true to like
You
Mexican.
can't.
But like the way that like, I think they were saying that like English is possessive, right? And other languages are just like, oh no, like this sofa is part of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wish I had specific
but
examples, but
I get what
yeah.
you mean. And I mean, to me, this is one of my favorite things about language, and part of what like drove me to want to learn language, right, is because you really don't know somebody until you speak to them in their mother tongue.
Yes.
And so my experiences with Italian and French, right, were as an au pair. And so I was living with a host family in these like random places in both countries, right? And especially in Italy, I was living in a town of 3,000 people.
Yeah.
So there was no way, like no one spoke English. I was the only person, and I was the first au pair to ever come to this like little town too. So it was like, I was just the American, right? And they knew, but literally the entire community was there like helping me learn. But I remember as soon as I could start conversing, like my life changed so dramatically over there, right? And literally their grandma, she invited me over to learn how to make pasta by hand, and she was teaching me all these like her recipes and things like that because she felt understood finally as well. And so that would never have happened if I didn't make the effort to actually understand her, to engage with her in her language. Before that, it was so awkward and she was so standoffish, and I thought she was kind of mean even. But it was literally just like getting to engage with her. She's the nicest woman I've ever met, you know? And it was just engaging with her in her own language. And getting to do that too, like as an au pair, I think I've loved, because the whole point too is you're teaching kids English, right? And so seeing how they adapt to different languages, and you really learn that language is so deeply tied to culture, and the way that they sometimes translate things and whatever, they're bringing like a little bit of their culture into it and whatever, because you can't completely detach it.
No, and I'll still find myself, because like I feel like now I just speak more English than Spanish, but I'll still find myself like grammatically saying something wrong, and I'm like, oh yeah, you know, I was like, that's
I almost
weird.
just said they're traducing, you know, it's like, no, bro.
No, and it's just funny, and I love it. I think my parents would, well, all my whole like Gutierrez family more, well, I think the Almadas do it too, but they would always like tease my cousin Faye and me, because we're the most like culpable of this. Like we would always, and even they're saying like culpable, like culpables, right? But I'm like, but because we would always be making up so many like different words just because like it's coming from the other, and we're like, hey, the point of language is also to like
be understood,
you know. And I am like pedantic, especially with myself, because I'm like, I want to have like the precise word for things, but and when I was younger I would always like correct, you know, because I feel like that's the Almada kicking in. I remember I think we were like in Mexico City. My grandparents were coming in, and there was a board, so I just like thought I was being cute, and I wrote like "Bienvenidos, abuelitos." Obviously, and also like, why didn't my mom and dad like fix it, right? So my grandpa comes in and then like checks it, and then he's like, "It's
Accent.
B."
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm just like,
yeah.
But that is such an Almada thing of like the correct thing.
It is a little bit, and I would say that growing up that way, especially with Spanish, like, I don't know, I think ridiculing someone for language is, I've learned like how detrimental it can really be. And how rude, because like it's so difficult, to be honest, to be really good into, and being bilingual in and of itself is already like so far ahead of, you know, anything. And so Yeah, I think that is some. I mean, it's really funny. It's always funny and it's so cute watching someone like in their little accent with a new language and things like that. But it's cute and it's
Yeah.
awesome that they're,
And
you
you're
know, it's like,
trying.
yeah, yeah.
Because, yeah, one of my best friends, like, she's been bilingual for the longest time, but, and she's like a professor too. But she, yeah, started like getting self conscious about it with when being with adults because she used to work with children a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always just be like, okay, first of all, like the fact that you're self conscious with me, like, don't you know
Yeah.
me? Like, at least with me, don't be. But I'm like, who are these people? Like, no, bring them to me. I
Yeah.
will make sure to make this right.
Especially in
Like,
a country where monolingualism is so common, right? Like in much of the world, speaking more than one language is more normalized and all these things, but the US, like that's really not the case and we're
yeah.
so behind in language learning. So for anyone, who's bilingual, anything, to be made to feel less than like here, I'm like,
Yes.
don't.
No, and then also there is something, and I want to hear your opinions on this. But again, I think you and I both stand on the same side of like, let everyone, just try their best.
Mhm.
And, but at the same time, also I just don't like, I feel like with both sides, like, um, there'll always be kind of like the judgment and like, oh, the no sabo kids.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I also feel like just because I have a lot of friends that like would just ashamedly be like, yeah, my parents, are Mexican, but I still, and they're very self-conscious and would never speak it, but they
Mhm.
can. And so to me, just when I'm with those friends, I'm like, no, just speak it. Like I won't
Yeah.
judge you,
Yeah.
and like you grew up the way that you grew up, and there was, I think now it's more accepted, right, to
It
like
is.
be a minority. But when we were growing up, it was like you had to assimilate just to
Yeah.
survive,
Yeah.
And if you were white passing, then that helped out a lot. But I feel like it's been within the last like 6 years or I don't know 10 years that like it's been more accepted to be like different and not be like
Yeah.
trying to fit in. But
No, I think
um,
absolutely. Like I would say I grew up with so much privilege in that regard too, and where I was like such a kind of liberal area and people I remember like my soccer coach, one of them, not the angry British one,
uh,
but he kind of pulled me aside one day and because I said something about, oh yeah, Spanish, whatever. And I guess he thought that I was a little bit like hiding it or felt maybe whatever. And he was like, that is a superpower. He's like, that's so cool. So just in a space where it was really highlighted and yeah, like I was never made to feel um, discriminated against by any means for speaking
mm-hmm.
Spanish. But people also didn't even believe that I was Mexican until they heard me speak Spanish. So it
Oh
was also
yeah.
a very different
Or
experience, right?
even
Of
then now I'll be like, oh, your Spanish is so good. And I'm
yeah,
like, my English is good
yeah,
actually. Like, no.
yeah. And there is a level of privilege that comes with that from, looking the way we do and being
Yes.
perceived and being welcomed because of that. So that Spanish is just like, it's like the whole thing about, I don't know, I think I relate it to like how men sometimes, they're really nice to girls that they perceive as attractive. And then their weird attributes are like cool and hot, because it's like, but then if you're not considered attractive and whatever, then
Then you're
it's
just
weird.
weird.
Yeah, and
Uh-huh.
whatever traits. And I think that goes the same way with language or with these different cultural differences. Like if you're white passing, those extra things,
If
oh,
you
you
know
speak
two languages,
Spanish,
like, oh
yeah,
wow. Yeah.
it's like wow, that's so cool and it makes you special and like accepted. But if you don't fit into the mold of what like, especially in this country, I think that like what diversity and what people want that to look like and the ways, then it's like a weird thing or whatever. And I think about that with other languages, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
Spanish I think right now is one of the maybe more celebrated, what gets accepted and what's weird. Yeah, but I've been very lucky in that regard for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think my Mexicanness has always been celebrated,
Yeah.
where I've been, and not being brown, not being whatever. Like I definitely didn't face, like criticism or discrimination about where my parents were from. I mean, the most like you can never fully escape it, but I think of this as so trivial compared to like real racism and things that people experience.
Yes.
But I remember in middle school, people would make jokes to me about like, oh, the stupid boys at the lunch table would be like, oh, what does your dad do? Like, is he a drug dealer? Like, ha ha ha. And I remember that would kind of, it annoyed me. And it's like, no, I mean, my dad's an engineer, like that's cool and whatever. And but I mean, that's the extent of it, it's, and that's a privilege to say, you know, that like my cultural differences, like that's the extent of the discrimination or anything that I face, you know, it's like so minimal. And that's a real privilege, and it's helped, you know, shape
Yeah.
being able to be open about it and all these things. So
But also like bring attention to,
Yeah.
you know, the fact that like, I don't know, I do see my privilege. And yeah, being white passing and same being celebrated like, oh, like whenever I say I'm Mexican, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
oh wow, that is, you know, like applause whenever, as
Uh-huh.
opposed to like in the same breath, they'll be, you know, looking at
Yeah.
other Mexicans.
But it also made me
so-
realize like how deep and how entrenched kind of these perceptions abroad are too of what Mexicans even are.
Oh yeah.
Especially in my experiences like in Europe, you know, going and living in these kind of more remote places too. And I remember, you know, people being like, oh, but you can't be Mexican. You're like white
Yeah.
and not indigenous looking. And I was like, oh, well, it's a very diverse country.
Yeah.
You know, like it's such a diverse country. And yeah, I wouldn't say that I look like the maybe average person in Mexico. We do have a very deep and rich history of mestizaje and all these things, right? But yeah, those perceptions and the way that they're said, that it's like celebrated that you
Yes.
don't look like that. It's like tells you so much, you know, and it's problematic to say the least.
Yes. And it is
Yeah.
problematic. Okay. You grew up in Seattle, and recently well, I don't know how recently, but you moved to El Paso.
Yeah.
And so now you can say that you've lived in a border city, even
Mm-hmm.
but you came in as an outsider, even though you grew up, you know,
Yeah.
with, you know, both sides of the family, not both sides of the family, but yeah, both cultures.
Yeah.
But now you are immersed in that culture, and you can see from the outside. And you did your master's,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know. Hopefully, you can see this. Is it called dissertation? It is your dissertation.
Thesis, yeah.
Your thesis.
It's like dissertation
And it's.
length though. It's hefty.
I know. And I had every intention of reading this, except I barely got it a couple days ago.
I promise you, not many people have or will
Yeah,
ever read
no.
that. 200 pages, so it's.
And I will. Well, I am an Almada, so I
Yeah.
will make a comment. Does Maria not have an accent? Because that's your middle name.
My Maria
Doesn't
not.
have an accent?
At least not on any formal documentation I've
Uh-huh.
ever seen.
Interesting. Okay. Because I saw it and I was like, did she misspell her own name on her thesis?
I've in no formal documentation ever
Do you
seen my
have-
name.
okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
spelled.
And I do want to talk about it. I'll read it because I think from a lot of my friends that have written thesis and dissertations that this is your baby.
It
Like, I'm
is.
also feeling it. And, you know, you put so much heart and time and energy into this. And that's why I will read it. And I will say, I asked you for it when you graduated. I was like, can you send it to me? And then, well, you were busy with all celebrations and everything.
Yeah.
And then for this, I was like, you know what? I got to be prepared.
To be honest, I don't remember that, but that's very sweet and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because
No.
most people don't take the time to read something that you do in your master's or even your PhD dissertation. My mentor, I remember he literally told me, he was like, there's this saying in academia that dissertations are like where all good work goes to die.
Okay.
Something along these lines, because no one really reads it, and it's
Yeah.
this really long thing, but it's not really a book. It's not being published and like supported and you know whatever. And so
Well,
they
most
just,
of the time they're behind a paywall too.
Exactly.
But I've heard PSA for everyone that sometimes like if you'll just get the person's name, find them on LinkedIn, if you email them,
yeah,
everyone
people
would
if you,
just send it to
if
you.
anyone ever asked me for this, I would
Yes.
absolutely send it to them. It's like, wow, you're interested in reading. You're gonna be the fourth person to read it.
Yeah.
My 3 committee members, and
I'll be the fourth.
yeah.
But
no,
I will
it's
definitely add it to my reading.
Yeah.
What's it called? Yeah.
I mean, this is a
tracking
whole
list.
separate conversation too about the academic world and how things work. But like I'm right now, a current project is trying to turn this into an article, right, into
Yeah.
a short form, so that the work actually gets read and recognized, right? Because again,
I
as a
mean,
thesis
well, we can do
dissertation-
an ad for this. That's
Yeah.
why we're here, to get everyone to read it. Or you can do like
yeah,
some little
forthcoming
content.
probably 2027. It
Yeah.
takes a while.
Let's
but-
go.
but
Hey,
it's
we'll
coming.
repose the podcast episode by then.
Yeah.
All right. So the title is environmental movements in El Paso and Ciudad Juarez, possibilities and limitations of cross-border organizations at the U.S.-Mexico border, by Vanessa Maria Almada.
Yeah, I am super proud of it, to be
Yeah.
honest. And the whole idea comes from, I've always been really interested, especially as a scholar, in just understanding like how do people mitigate the difficult things of our kind of world systems, right? And a huge part of that is social movements and organizations and just civil society in general, how people come together, right, and really mobilize for something better. And so being on the border to me was really interesting. Like, how does this happen collaboratively across borders? And it turns out it's happening less and less. And so I was really curious, especially in terms of the environmental front, because it's maybe the most obvious thing that we share. We share literally the same air basin because we live in a valley together in El Paso and Juarez. We share the same underwater aquifers and basically everything that has to do with our environment. And yet it's all managed unilaterally. So our water is governed completely differently. We have different tubes and everything, literally, that, our infrastructure is completely separate. And air regulations and everything are governed not only, differently in El Paso and Juarez, but by Chihuahua and Texas as states, like completely differently. And then throw in Las Cruces in there. And so there's all these different kind of overlapping levels of regulation and jurisdiction. And I was curious, like, what are people and these social movements, on either side doing to combat this and to really bring forth, a more united vision of what we need to do, because we're running out of water and our air quality is amongst the worst in the nation. So we should be doing a lot more about this, and we really don't. And yeah, in a nutshell, kind of what comes out of this like 9-month long investigation is that we're seeing less and less collaboration across borders, even though we live, as people call them, sister cities and all these things. But there's all these barriers to being able to collaborate with people who are just, a couple miles from you because of the infrastructure that's being developed on the border. And we think about it primarily as like a way, border security and all these things in terms of migration. But it's having all these secondary effects, right? Also on dividing these communities in other ways that are really harmful to border people. So, yeah, that was kind of the idea of this.
Yeah. Well, I am very proud of you.
Thank you.
I think, yeah, just doing a master's degree on anything, it's just, I don't know, very impressive.
Thank you.
You probably are thinking about doing your doctorates as well. Hopefully in Austin, so you can come live here.
I know. UT, take me.
I know. Hey, this is her application.
Yeah.
Submitted.
Right. Honestly, yeah. But yeah, no, I really am hoping to. I mean, my whole life, I've just been so dedicated to learning, and call me a Gemini, but I'm so curious always. And yeah, I've found my way back to school in a way that I really appreciate, and I'm not ready to let go, PhDs in this country are another 5 years.
That is a long time.
It's a long time. But it's also kind of what you have to do if you're interested in creating your own knowledge. And yeah. So yeah, the whole process is honestly so rewarding. Like, it's so much work, but it's so rewarding to, at the end of the day, be able to say, like, I did this thing and now I can draw my own conclusions. People haven't written about this topic too much since like the 90s.
Yeah.
And so to be able to give like a real update, again, nobody really reads these things and whatever, but
nobody reads anything.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, but still, like, people would have to cite me, if they were really going to talk about modern collaboration on environmental issues and things like that. And so knowing that is,
well, I will put it out there. Okay. Everyone go read it and cite Vanessa Almada.
Yeah. Maria Almada
Maria
without the accent. Yeah.
And I also want to talk about, and talk is one of my words that I don't know, I want to say like talk. I don't know. It comes out weird. Is with your relationship with academia and school. because I know now it's something that you're very passionate about,
Mm-hmm.
but it used to be something that you struggled with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to hear about, yeah, that struggle and kind of like
Yeah.
what are the key components that made you actually like reverse that and actually enjoy it.
Yeah. Thank you for the question because I think it's really important. And I like to talk about my non-linear trajectory in academia because I think that for a lot of us who grow up with hardship or whatever, like we then become and think that these things are maybe out of our reach, or maybe you stumble somewhere along the lines and you just think, okay, this is no longer for me. Like I've
Yeah.
failed and now, my like path and ideas that I had for myself, like I can no longer get there. And I stumbled hard. Like when I was a kid, I was absolutely like the straight A type and
Yes.
everything, and was such a perfectionist when it came to school. And life got to me and things got to me, and I really kind of like fell off that horse. Like I was a completely different person come high school, and
Mm-hmm.
like, did I fail a class in high school? Yeah, I failed my very first class as a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
Like that was so foreign to me, but that's how deep
Well, it
things
was
said.
also an adjustment the couple of years after losing your mom as a like you're becoming a teenager. That
Yeah, and
is,
like I
yeah.
said, at that time, my little brother and I, we basically lived alone for so much of that time. My dad, I remember that first month of my junior year of high school, he was sent to China, literally for an entire month.
Uh-huh.
So it was just the two of us, the 15-year-old and 12, 11-year-old, and we're like just doing what we can too.
Yeah.
And so much of that like gets missed, in these stories of whatever. And it's so difficult still to translate like some of those academic failures, without like telling your whole life and whatever.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I need to justify all
No.
that. It's like shit got real, and it was, yeah. And it really, like, that was that. And I kind of, was able to dust it off, whatever the counselors helped me. And it's high school, so it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay. And I recovered, and my last year, like my senior year, I did really well again, and whatever, it was good. And then come college, I had another dip. It was like the first time living by myself, and let's just say a lot of different things, right, kind of came together in a
Mm-hmm.
different way. And and again, I really lost this relationship like with what I loved so much, right? This whole process of learning. And yeah, and I failed some classes then. I kind of got behind. That's when, and then COVID, COVID came my very first year of college.
Oh no.
Yeah, literally, I was like the first or second month of our second quarter.
Semester. Oh.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so it was like we literally had one quarter of full time, like normal instruction. And then we were sent home a month into the second quarter. So that was 4 months into my whole college experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were sent home and everything's online and whatever. And that first semester online, I literally did great. I was like, got a 4.0 and whatever. And then after that, it started slipping. And I literally, like, oh gosh, maybe I should. I hope my dad never listens to it. One quarter, I ended with like a zero. Like, I just,
Score. Yeah.
yeah, like I never turned in anything. Like, I literally just didn't.
Like for all classes or one class?
For like two classes,
Yeah.
like one class maybe, yeah, I had like a good, I don't know, my GP, like my grades in that time were so wild because it would be like zero, literally, I'm not even kidding. Like I would do so much of the work, but I was so scared to like talk to the teacher later,
Uh-huh.
let's say the first, like, I think what happened there too is like the first couple weeks just didn't do any, like, or was behind, and then catching up, and I was always catching up and doing the things, but I was so scared to like just reach out and be honest and whatever and say like, hey, I've done this, blah blah blah. Yeah, and so I could have that, and then I would have like a 4.0 in a different class, like an
Yeah.
A and whatever. So it was all over the place. But again, that kind of lasted for a bit, and that was when I first decided to like have my little solo trip, when I did my first round of au pair and I left.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like so perfect for me. And I wasn't like, my roommates that year, we were living together again. COVID is in like full swing. Seattle is shut down. There's like,
Oh yeah, one.
like Seattle was shut down.
Yeah.
And there's four of us living together in this apartment, and a lot of things went down. But at the end of the day, I look back and I'm just like, that was difficult. You know, we
It
had
was so
nowhere else to
difficult.
go. We're living in
Yeah,
this small
I
4-bedroom apartment. Like,
no, I always remember because like yeah, when COVID hit, I was also living by myself, so it was hard in its own way. But yeah, I always remember just looking at any of like the younger people that one of my best friends was a teacher, for second graders, fifth graders. And, like I was helping her like set up, Skype. But I remember like I can't imagine being, in, elementary school. Or, my sister didn't get to, walk in graduation because of it. I don't know. I just think of like anyone younger than me, basically. I'm like, I can't imagine. Or yeah, being for the first time, living on your own with four other, people your age that like the world is like, it was a very traumatic and scary time for everyone.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine just being
Yeah.
that young and
It was a
struggling with
lot.
like, because you were struggling, we were all struggling, through life always. But yeah, you're struggling to like get through your classes and having like very real world, like passing classes. That's hard. And suddenly, it's just become so much.
yeah, and so the whole process, like, again, it just made me question myself so much, right? And whether I was really capable of doing these things and whatever. And again, I kind of took a break. I took a quarter off, and when I came back, I was like, oh, whoa, like I gotta get my shit together, and like, yeah, it's time, because then I came back in junior year, right? And so I had a year and a half left, but I had all these credits to make up too and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, I didn't want to graduate late. And yeah, so the normal was like 15 to 18 credits, I want to say, for a quarter.
Because I forget in Seattle it's quarters.
Yeah, we had a quarter system, and so I think the norm was like 15 to 18 in a quarter. And I took 2 25 credit quarters to catch up,
To make up.
and to get everything back on track. And so technically, like, you weren't even really allowed to do that at the university, but I got around it by taking classes at like the community college. Whatever basics like I still had to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just like double dipping to just like, hey,
I-
gotta get the courses.
Yeah, but 25 credits in a quarter is insane. Like,
Yeah. No, I
it's-
can imagine.
Yeah, and so I had so much work, but I just kind of doubled down on it, and I was like, nah, like I need to do this and I need to finish and whatever. But I still wasn't like enjoying the process because I just wanted to be done. And I was like so disillusioned with academia because I was like, this sucks and whatever. And I was studying political science, political economy. And I basically did it because I was like, honestly, a lot of these professors kind of suck, but they're so prestigious and they're so like whatever. And I was like, I wanted to like know, I wanted to learn the white man's language about these types of things and to be able to kind of fight back with my own, and formulate my own thoughts around it. And I think that was very successful in the end and whatever. But yeah, so I was just like graduating to be done, right? And then I had a gap year in between. That's when I went to France, and I had my whole, my life goal at that point was to learn 5 languages. I thought it would take me a lot longer than it did. And so, yeah, that was kind of the whole thing about the gap year, is go and do that and really immerse myself in the language learning. And au pair is not a great way to make money, if anyone, and like it pays horribly, but it's a great experience in its own ways and things. But yeah, while I was there, I was like, I really wanted the opportunity to prove to myself that no, I'm still capable of this, because thinking really about what I wanted to do with my life and whatever, I didn't really see anything else other than, I've always loved teaching. I've always loved these things. And I actually heard Karla, when she came on, talking about this, that she had gotten the advice, or heard, or it was the whole, like, if you like teaching, maybe do something else and then come back to it, right? And our tia Lupita was the one who told me that when I was like 15. And it stuck with me forever, because I thought maybe in college I did think about maybe education, because I still loved working with kids. Like, I loved teaching. But I remembered that advice, and I was like, no, I'm going to, still become maybe a specialist in my own thing and whatever. And so with the master's, it was a continuation of that. It was like, well, let's see, And I applied to a few schools. I was actually looking to go in Mexico to do my master's. But I got like boggled down with like the transcripts and like all the like sending papers and things. And I got into UTEP kind of during that process. UTEP was like completely a whim. I was like, oh, well, let's see. Because I didn't really care to do my master's in the US. Got accepted, read my like now mentor's book on the border, and just fell in love with the ideas and whatever. And yeah, I went back and was able to graduate with the 4.0 and with honors, and got so many opportunities out of that master's, and conferences and symposiums and sharing my research and doing all these things that I thought like would never be open to me again, these possibilities. And if you had told me 2 years ago that I'd be applying to do my PhD and I'd, would be at these types of places and whatever, and giving talks at UT, it would have seemed so foreign to me, and I would have thought that it was completely beyond my reach. But yeah, so I think the moral of the story is, it's not easy to climb your way out of holes. It's really not, but it's not impossible sometimes, and your dreams are still out there.
They are. And I think it's just very important to think we just know what we know. And I think it's very important for us to also hear other like normal people's stories about like, oh, you also struggled and I'm not the only one that like failed a class. And you were able to like, learn 5 languages and get a master's degree, and now they're looking. So I think it's just, I don't think we get to see enough people's like failures and success. And we know that, we know that like social media, or even, like in a 1-to-1 interaction, like you're not going to talk about like, your deepest failures. But it's one of the things that like makes us human. And I think with this podcast is one of the things that I've realized that a lot of people resonate with. And I've also, I think you also need to like listen to yourself and like what gives you energy, because you could have studied, maybe to become a teacher, and maybe, you're great with kids, but then once you're studying the material or how to do it, then you realize it's not, what brings
like
you.
it would have been giving up, because again, political science, any sort of social science, like if you wanted to really have a career in that, it's going to be more school. And so that's also why, like, I had, I just didn't know if I was capable anymore. I didn't know if I was still this, like, person that I used to see myself as, that was so driven and that was intelligent and capable of all these things. And that's what I'm so eternally grateful to in this master's too, like, getting the opportunity to do that. And my mentors, like, I think they're the smartest people ever. And to have, like, people you look up to so much think highly of you,
Yes.
And that, like, it's also so life-changing, and has encouraged me so much, to continue that journey. Academia is a weird and, like, super closed off thing. And it's so problematic in so many ways. But UT, take me. And but it's also like the process of learning. Like I said, I've always been so in love with it. And being a TA, getting to teach my first lectures and all these things, like it really reminded me of why I love the process and why I still want to do it, and that I'm capable of creating knowledge and being a part of these discussions. And as I apply now to PhDs, I think that something that really drives me to, like, I didn't really care where I did it. Last year I applied to some, I got into a couple, and I turned it down in the end because I realized, like, I can demand a little bit more, and it's 5 years of your life, so you also kind of need to. But right now I'm in the process again, and I'm looking through all these universities, like, among the most prestigious and among, like, less prestigious and whatever, and just looking at all these professors who are there. And there's so few Latino women.
Yes.
Like, so few.
Yeah.
And that drives me even more to just do the thing. This is the first time in my life that I've really felt that, where I feel like, there's a torch to carry.
Yeah.
And seeing a couple of them on there, like, it inspires me so much to just keep going and do it.
Believe it.
Yeah. And so I'm like, if I could do that for anybody, like a couple, Latino women 20 years from now or whatever, I'm like, that is meaningful, and that is something that I really care about, enough to push myself to not just do it for me, but for whoever else maybe down the road might, maybe one day,
Yes. Well, yeah, I love that. And we got to pave the road, and I don't know.
Latino
each
women
other
in
up.
STEM. How many of them, you know,
So
like
I
it's,
know.
but it's so
It
real.
was, I think
What
in,
I
yeah.
actually want to ask you, what percentage of Latino women in the US do you think have their master's or PhD? Like a post-secondary degree?
I don't know, like a 5%?
It's like 8%.
Yeah.
Like that's so low, especially in a country where women are actually like outperforming men, right?
Mm-hmm.
In so many of these aspects. But it's like 8%. And with their
Yeah.
PhD, I want to say it's like 3 or 4 or something.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the things that like happened to me because I feel like growing up also in El Paso, we have a lot of, Latino people.
Mm-hmm.
But growing up, there was always so many like Marifers, Maria,
Yeah.
Maribel, whatever. And there's always so many in any world that I have been in and all my friends. And I remember one time I was just like in my work, and it was a very big company, like,
Mm-hmm.
thousands of employees like all around the world. And I, for some reason, I clicked on the wrong location. I just started typing my name, Maritza. And I remember I typed Mari, and like no one came out. It was like me. And I'm like, I don't know why I clicked, and I was like, why aren't there any other Marias? Like,
Maritz,
or
yeah, yeah.
Marisa, Marisol, like, because I'm so used to like always like
Growing
those
up in
Mari,
that
like it's
space.
always,
Yeah.
Marifer. Um, and it just hit me, and I was thinking about that, like how many Latino women, like engineers,
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, engineering does have a lot of minorities in it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously male dominated, so
Yeah.
mostly
And
men.
it's changing,
Um,
sure. Like,
yeah, so yeah,
but those
here we are.
percentages are still, yeah, maybe not where we hope that they would be. And I think something else that I've learned a lot through this master's and studying border communities and especially Mexican American populations is like how Mexicans in general have been the backbone of so much of this country's growth, right?
Yes, yeah.
Especially in the Southwest, but across the nation. Like, especially right now, think about who's doing so much of that labor in all of these major cities in the world, right? People think that immigrants, maybe they'll be coming to like an El Paso or something like that, but they don't really stay in border
No.
cities like that. They go to these big cities, right? And they're
Mm-hmm.
the ones driving all of this new construction, right? And the growth of these cities. And yet Mexicans and Latinos in general, but Mexicans in particular, like stay amongst these like blue collar jobs, right? And for generations, that's been the case.
Mm-hmm.
And so seeing women in STEM or, I see Latinos or anything, going to some of these conferences and being able to talk to other young people like me and who are also come from like like less privileged positions than
Yeah.
I did, and blah blah blah, and like doing all these things, it's incredible. And I think whatever I can do to uphold that and yeah, support that kind of growth, like that's part of my desire to be a teacher too. And
Mm-hmm.
I think UTEP is such a beautiful space for showcasing that.
Yeah.
But these kids, so many of them, my boyfriend was, he worked in like a coordinator position in the Office of Student Fellowships and Awards, if I can say all that. And he worked with so many young El Pasoans, who are like these Mexican American kids, first generation students,
Mm-hmm.
and they legitimately have no idea of like the heights that they could reach,
Yeah.
because they've never seen it.
Yes.
As opposed to
Yeah.
all these people, who maybe grew up with Ivy League parents and whatever, and that kind of history of your parents are making money and are at these like really prestigious places. And that's not the case at all for most people, especially in border communities. And so again, that's another part of my drive and desire for
Yeah.
being in this space, is taking up that space and
And making
encouraging.
it visible.
Yes,
Yeah. You
not
can
just
do
for
this.
me,
Yeah.
because I do come from a lot of privileges myself, and the way that I look and the way I grew up and the schools that I went to and all these things. But for a lot of the people who didn't have, a lot of people with maybe my name or similar or whatever, but who didn't have those backgrounds and who really don't know, that that's
Yeah.
accessible to them and that they're capable of doing it.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And I think, yeah, once you see it, you think, you have the right resources. Or I know universities do a lot of like
Hmm.
counselors and stuff that help you out, get there. But I'm
You
glad
have to know that it's there.
you have to know that it's a
Yeah,
possibility. And
exactly.
yeah, that's what this podcast is for.
Yes.
It's all possible.
Yeah. No, for real. My whole adult life has been like proving that to myself one step at a
Mm-hmm.
time, that that's exactly how you get from point A to point B, right? It's just little steps and baby steps and whatever, but you can really get so much further. I think you're not your mistakes, and you know things might seem out of reach, but it's just like little things that you can do to maybe get yourself to somewhere closer to where you want to be, and that path hopefully slowly opens up in one way or another. And if you're not doing it for yourself, you know, if that path isn't maybe opening up for you, you have no idea who you might be opening that up for, you know.
Yeah.
I think I've really learned that a lot too the last few years.
Well, I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Are you ready for my next segment?
Okay.
Have you been studying? Have you been researching?
Yeah, I think I'm ready. I know a couple.
All right. So this next segment, for everyone that's tuning in for the first time, is called "Tell Me Your Favorite Taylor Swift Song," and I'll tell you why you're wrong.
Okay, so I did try to prepare for this, but only 2 answers came to me.
Okay.
And one of them I think you're going to say is absolutely wrong. The other one I don't think you're going to be able to fight me on.
Okay.
So which one do you want first?
The easy one, the one that I won't fight you on.
Okay, this one I don't think you'll be able to fight me on because it's just the nostalgia of it. It's, you know, it's so whatever. And it's a Fearless song.
Okay.
So, you know, it's going to be like you're 10 and whatever, and you're feeling some type of way, and you're like learning Taylor Swift for the first time. That song is The Best Day.
Oh my God. I love The Best Day.
It's too cute to fight. That's why I was like, you know, and it's OG. Like, I was like, I know. But that's the only one that I come back to time and time again, I would say. Like, especially, I'm not someone who, like, listens to her a lot.
Only when you're with me and we're on a road trip and we run out of roaming and the only saved songs I have is all of her discography.
Coming back from El Rancho,
yeah. And then I fall asleep, so I didn't realize that it kept playing.
I can't remember the last time that I played Taylor Swift. Okay, that's why actually the second one. But I can't remember the last time that I played Taylor Swift by myself. But I'm surrounded by Swifties in such an incessant way that I literally know the entire lyrics to songs that I'm like, I've never put this on myself ever. Yeah. And I like, because my college roommate, my last year, she was a huge Swiftie. Like she ran her first half marathon that year. Listened entirely to
love it.
And so I know lore I never wanted to know. I literally know the meanings of things that I never even thought about. You and her and Panchi and so many people in my life, but so that's why this next answer I know is gonna piss you guys off a little bit. You're just gonna be like, why? Like, that's not even close. But this is, you know, that said, that like I'm not really someone who ever like puts Taylor on just like myself. This song made me do that. Guilty as Sin.
Ooh, I love Guilty as Sin. Why would I fight you on that?
Because I just feel like it's not like really in the top, like to say, top tier Taylor song.
No, it definitely is.
Yeah?
No.
Okay.
Well, for me, anything in, you know, TTPD is just like, you know,
I thought that was gonna be. I thought that would be a
them.
Controversial pick for a Swiftie. I did.
No. Honestly, the reason that I started is controversial would be like the popular ones, you know, or like, you know, but anything that you're actually like listen to it, and I'm like, you know what, which is. I found the error in my ways as soon as I, you know, started it, because like you're the third person that I've done this segment with. And the 3 times, I'm like, I love all the answers. Because, you know, it's like the same thing that I'm like, I just talk about Taylor Swift and I'm in.
No, but I do think I'm not someone who really celebrates, like, her lyricism or, like, her as a writer has not always resonated with me. Okay. But that song I think is fun. And the whole idea that I actually, again, another Swiftie that in my life, I know like every song on that album because when I was in France, the girl that I took care of was a huge Swiftie and fell in love with the album. And every single day on the way to and from every activity I ever took her to, Tortured Poets Department. So
okay, I'm glad that kind of glad but saddened that you said that you've already listened to Tortured Poets, because my recommendation for you, and I was like, I think a lot of the songs, and we'll listen to them because we're road tripping right after this.
No.
No. Like, are we late? Typically, you know, late. But there's so many. We'll listen to them in the next couple of hours that I'm obsessed with her. And
But
And
I was curious.
And I also understand that, like, if it's not for you, it's not for you. And, you know, that's one of the reasons. I don't know. I just, you know, I am like a diehard Swiftie, but I'll accept it.
Yeah,
like,
and here's my thing about why I'm not like a Taylor hater. Because I think, like, fuck billionaires. Do you swear on this podcast?
Yeah.
I've kind of been throwing it in, but I didn't know. Anyway, because fuck billionaires, and she is one, you know? So it's like, I don't really, it's going to be hard for me to buy into her, just given a lot of those things. But at the same time, I'm like, there's so many men to rip into first, you know? And she, I think, does get
the brunt of it. Yeah.
A lot of, you know, it's like, I remember the whole private jet thing use and that thing. And, I my whole thing is on environmental groups and things, you know, like, that's really messed up. But, you know, we could come for the Musks of the world and the other things that are kind of, you know, maybe first, before we're just like, I think her stuff gets heightened sometimes in ways that it's like, I'd rather go for, you know, have you seen that guy who does like the new segment? He's like, male abusers who still haven't been, you know, put away as much as a woman who doesn't smile.
Oh, I think so. Yeah,
that guy who does that. I'm
because is he the one that's like, this is why Chapel Roan, whatever, and there's like, psych, I'm not talking about that. And I was like, okay, you caught me, because I was about to like be angry, and then I was like, all right, let's go.
So I'm kind of that mind where I'm like, let's go for all the people who maybe haven't been punished enough first, versus a woman who's been in the spotlight and been brought up in a lot of, and I don't really empathize with her in a lot of things, but I just think there's there's more pressing, worthy people who are assaulting this planet in worse ways to come for.
Well, I think a lot of, I mean, that's the easy answer for me to say for you, like the TTPD, there's a lot of them that lyrically, I just like cut deep to me. Okay. But I will say, especially I think because, which is funny because you were like, oh yeah, fearless when you're 10 and blah, blah. And I'm like,
I was 10.
You were 10, yeah. I didn't think but I was like, no, that's not my experience. Yeah. I was like, I don't know. How much older am I than you? I don't know. But I think for me, it's the same, the first couple, like 3 albums. And I think for, I don't know, Speak Now, and not the album, but the song Sparks Fly. You just give me that vibe of like, you know.
That's very sweet.
And it just reminds me of like those times that I was, which also, thinking about like how formative like your family was to like my upbringing. The only reason that I like Taylor Swift is because of your sister.
That's crazy.
And because, like, I grew up listening to just, like, Mexican music, you know? And I remember one of those times that, like, you guys came to Juarez.
Wow. And that's some deep Maritz lore I did not know.
I know, which is funny because Paola doesn't even like Taylor Swift anymore. But, and I wasn't aware of, like, any, like, anyway, she introduced me. Yeah, she came over, and I think we went to one of, like, the music stores, and she was like, oh, my God. This artist is so cool, and her name is Avril Lavigne. Oh, I don't have her. I had her, I think, last week or late. She's like, Avril Lavigne, and she's like, punk, you know, like, skater boy, and I was like, okay. And I was like, oh, like, I'll listen to it. And then Taylor Swift, you know, and she was just barely, like, coming out, you know. She's like, oh, this is an up-and-coming, like, country artist. And I was like, I don't even know what country is. Yeah. But, yeah, I literally, like, didn't. And I was like, okay. And then she introduced me to, like, My Chemical Romance, obviously. Yeah. And, but that was my...
introduction. That's crazy. Yeah. So my sister was kind of my introduction too, but everyone, just like my friends at school and everyone, was like really into Taylor and her first few albums and whatever. And funny enough, I don't know if you know this story of when Pao snuck me and my cousin Alexa into the Taylor Swift concert.
No.
So she didn't fully sneak us in, but basically, my parents were like, we're only paying for one ticket. Like, we're not gonna, you know, like, they were like, we're not paying for all 3 of you, me, my sister, and my cousin who was a year older than me, right? So my cousin and I, we are like 8 and 9, you know, really little. My sister is like 17, whatever. And she's like, okay, well, let's just go and we'll figure it out. Her friend Maddie, I think, was the one, and she bought a ticket too. So they had 2 tickets, like, just for them. Yeah. And they were like, well, we'll see. And my sister went up to a security guard, and she was like, start crying. Like, told me and my cousin. She was like, cry. And so we were like, and we just like like, we were just like, oh, but she told us like, you guys aren't going to get in if you don't, you know, whatever. And so we were like, okay. And we were just, you know, we're like, oh yeah, like, she's our favorite artist. Like, oh, and she's like, I brought my little sisters, you know, our cousin is visiting from Mexico, like, blah, blah, blah. Just made up this whole, and the security guard somehow got us tickets. I don't know how.
That is wild.
Yeah, I feel like now that would be so impossible to do or whatever. But she got us in, and yeah, we got 2 free tickets somehow from.
Dude, I am so jealous because,
Yeah.
and I will say, because you said now it'll be impossible now. It won't. But
Ooh.
Taylor, don't sue me or any of my friends. This is all alleged, okay? I don't know if it actually happened. But one of my friends, 2 of my friends recently snuck into the Era store.
Wow.
And you would think, and I was with them in, I won't say the city that it happened in.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, you should come over and we'll try to like buy tickets outside and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, it's not going to happen. I've been in the know, like, you won't get tickets last minute or whatever. And then they stopped replying, and then like I had their location because they're like, oh, we're here if you wanted to come. And they stopped replying, and I don't know what happened. And location was in the same spot. They snuck in, but she ended up like they like jumped a fence.
Wow.
She ended up like in the hospital because like she cut herself, but like afterwards, and like her phone fell like behind the fence and stuff.
My gosh.
But like hearing this story, and I was like, I'm so happy I didn't go, because imagine like I don't want to be in Taylor's bad terms,
like
imagine like her bodyguards having like a picture of me, you know, of, like
banned from the future tours.
My worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is crazy that you get. I am so jealous.
Yeah,
now I'm like,
another like crazy part of that day too is I almost didn't even make it out because I have one scar in my entire body, and it runs from like the my stomach to like it's, I don't know, like 5-6 inches. And it came that day because I like was playing with my friends, fell out of a tree, and a branch cut me, basically. And it was deep, like deep. But
have a scar.
But I don't think I would have had a scar if I didn't go to the concert, because I kept jumping up
so
and
now
down,
the
reopening
two that
it.
I know that snuck into a Taylor.
We didn't come out clean.
That is Tay voodoo.
Yeah, and it happened before. So
crazy.
and I've had that, the only scar, and so I'll remember that day for so many reasons. But yeah, we got in.
You're
and
scarred.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
That's my little Taylor
and
lore.
that is so interesting. Like, me making the connections
for the
that
Maritz podcast. Yeah,
I know. I'm like, oh my god. Now I need to know like more people that have snuck in, and if they have body marks for the rest of their life.
Yeah, Taylor marked me, I guess.
I know. Well, Tay voodoo is very real.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard about it, but we don't have enough time for me to go into that lore. We'll get into it on the road trip.
Okay.
Okay. So I would die if I were to see Taylor Swift and fist bump her. I don't know if it's a fist bump or a handshake. It was a handshake. So who have you fist bump or handshook?
Yeah, the most famous person I've ever interacted with.
Yes.
So, yes, this is also a story from my youth. I was like 15, 16. And I'm playing soccer in my club, got this opportunity to be like the flag girls and boys for the Copa America, because there were games in Seattle. And so they basically sent it out to the whole club, and we're like, oh, whoever like is available, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yes, Dad, like me immediately, yes, whatever. So my dad signed me up, and I was one of like, let's say 15 kids, right? And they also had like the little boys and girls, right, that get to hold the hands of the people. But I was too old for that, so I was just holding the flag.
Yeah.
But one of the games was the Argentina game against Bolivia. And so I got to be a flag girl for that game, and I was holding like the CONCACAF flag, like whatever. And yeah, I got the opportunity to do this, and I was so excited because I got to bring I got like another free ticket, right? And so I brought my older brother, like we were so excited. He was in like the little locker room with me. And then I head out, and of course we'd rehearsed and done whatever. I'd already done like a game or two, and this was one of the last ones. And basically what they have you do is you stand in the little tunnel where the players walk out. And yeah, you're just like there before they get there, and then the 11, who are starting, they walk out but behind you. And so I just thought, oh, I'm going to see Messi. I'm just going to see him like close to me. And the Argentina team. And then we see the starting lineup, and Messi's not starting. So all the players who don't start, they walk through first and they go out onto the benches. And so everyone starts freaking out, oh my gosh, like the players and Messi's gonna walk through. But like I said, I'm an educated, 16-year-old. My brothers had
Yeah.
me watching Barca since I was really little. So first I'm in this tunnel and I just start crying because I see Javier Mascherano literally walking on the other side of me, and I'm like, my idols, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm so excited. The woman who's coordinating this all, she like comes up to me and she's like, hey, like, are you okay? I'm just like, yeah, I'm just so excited. And she's like, well, you're about to be on live television, so if you could like not
Chill.
cry. Yeah. And I was like, yeah. I'm like, but Messi's coming,
Yeah.
I'm like freaking out. And she's like, no, honey, I get it. And she's like
But
so
stop.
excited for me. Yeah, but she's like, but please, like, not a great look for us. And I'm like, yeah. And so I'm like trying to calm myself down, but then I literally look over and Di Maria's walking down. And so I got to shake his hand, and I'm still just like, I'm so ecstatic and I'm so excited. And literally I didn't even like process. And Di Maria's walking by, I'm in shock, and Messi comes up. And so I'm like, I just stick out my hand and I like grab his hand and I shake it and I just scream like, te amo. And, he doesn't say anything back to me. He gets it every day of his life, but it was the best day of my life. I had the whole, like, I'm never going to wash this hand again, like, blah, blah, blah. And I can say that his beard is much more ginger in person.
Okay.
And he is a very tiny man.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
He was not much taller than me. I mean, he's only like 5'5".
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that was like the greatest experience of my childhood for me. I got to technically meet my idol.
Yeah. Well, I love that for you.
Yeah.
And I just want to show how sports dumb I am, because you were talking and you were like, oh yeah, the Marias and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, but they're a new band right now. And like, weren't you like really young back then? And like, I was like, why are we talking about like
No, the soccer studs will know. I got to see Angel Di Maria, Otamendi, Mascherano, Higuain before he was like, I don't know. I think that was after his World Cup fail, but still, it was Argentina 2016, the squad, This is...
No, but because you were saying, by the second time you said it, I was like, oh, I think that's a player's name.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I
The
normal.
Marias.
I knew that. I was like, why are we, like...
Him?
Oh, that's so funny. Okay. Where do you feel the most like yourself?
I think in a couple spaces. I would say I feel the most like in tune with myself when I'm like solo traveling, even if it's just like a little day trip or like a little... I love going in El Paso, for example, on the Trans Mountain Road.
I love...
It's so beautiful. And
It's
Scenic Drive gets
meditative.
all the credit, but driving through the mountains like that, just by myself though, any space like that, I love being like having good tunes, driving, or just like being in a new space, discovering a new city, like whatever space. Sometimes with an Eddie in me, like the best. And also I would say like teaching. I do think that I've been a soccer coach. I've, throughout my life worked so much with kids, nannying, teaching English, doing all these things. And I do love that version of myself. I'm not the most patient person, if you know me, like in day-to-day life. I've always been very enojona and all these things. But I don't know, with like old people and kids, I have all the patience in the world, and students and stuff. And so I don't know why teaching in these situations bring that out of me, but it does. And it, is, I feel like some of the best versions of myself. And I do really appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your favorite book?
Um,
Or, because I know we've spoken about this, about like favorites of anything. And I think like growing up, I would always be like, what's your favorite color? And I'm like, how do people know? Like, I like, it depends.
Okay, but I always like giving like a top 3 or top something
top
for
3,
those types of questions, because I do think it's really difficult to answer. But for favorite book, I have 2 that come to mind right now, and that I think I have talked to you about this, and but I love City of Girls.
I have not read.
Yeah, and I just recently read it, and I just it's not perfect and whatever, but I love her like coming of age story, and you meet her as like a young, like 16-year-old little Vivian, and she at the end is like 90s or something like that. And so
it's really
yeah,
all her.
she grows and you really see different stages of her life, and I love the woman that she becomes. And that book showed me that there's no one right way to be a woman. There's no one right way to be a sexual person. There's no one right way to be anything, and you can constantly shape that and rearrange it. And I appreciate that a lot about it. And the second book that comes to mind is The Color Purple.
Okay. I might have that one.
I struggled to get through it because of the way that it's written and everything, and it's a bunch of letters, like, you know, and it's kind of older, and so the style was a little bit difficult for me, but I ended up loving it. And I've never been the most spiritual person. I kind of stopped being religious when I was like 10. Like, I was really young when I kind of started questioning and having all these doubts. And that book was the first book that really gave me a sense of spirituality that I aligned with.
Yeah.
And there's this passage in it about where the main character, Shug, she's figuring out like her relationship with God and with spirituality. And I don't want to spoil it.
Okay,
because I love that section so much.
Oh,
but
not to interject again, but like your sister would hate this about me because we lived together for like a couple of months. And like whenever we were trying to choose a TV show or like movie to watch, I'd watch like the first 10 seconds of the trailer and I'm like, I can't. Like,
that's me too though. Yeah, that's why I'm like, I don't want to share this because you need to live it, you know, like word for word. I can't spoil any of it.
Okay, continue.
The context. I completely am with you though. Yeah, I don't want to know anything about things before I really go into them. Just like the most like 5 words about what this is, and that's enough for me. I'm like, but yeah, that section is one of my favorite passages in any book ever. And again, like gave me a sense of spirituality in a way like that I actually connected with, that I hadn't found, and still to this day haven't really found in anything else. So I think those two would kind of be the top for me for now.
I love that. And I want to hear about your thoughts on the book Caroline too. I feel like the books that we read when we are children.
So I have much more of a relationship with the movie.
With the movie. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I don't know why, but yeah, as far as those favorite questions go, when people ask about my favorite movie, like that always comes to mind.
See, I don't think I ever watched the movie then, but I did read it when I was, you know, younger.
Oh, really?
It was so creepy. But I was thinking about that. I don't know, just because you mentioning Caroline too recently. And I remember, like, why did I read such creepy books? I remember, like, Caroline, what is it called? Coraline. Yeah. I'm like, why am I suddenly doing everything wrong? It was that one, and then one of me and Karla's favorite, like, I don't know why all of us were obsessed with, like, Stranger with My Face. I haven't read it in a while, but it, like, I think it was...
Stranger with My Face?
Yes, and I do, by Lois Duncan. It's a woman. But it was very formative for all of, and it's so creepy. Yeah. But I think
scary books are underrated.
Oh yeah,
heavily underrated. I know that, you know, Stephen King has kind of popularized the genre and such, and I don't even know it like that well. But I do think it's a very kind of underrated section because everyone talks about horror films, but reading a scary book, like I still remember when I was 12 or however young in like school, and we had this competition called Battle of the Books, and you had to read within your team like 20 books, right? And you would get quizzed on questions about it at school and whatever. And I would read all of them, you know, because I ate them up and I loved the whole competition. I still would love to do that. But one of them was, I don't even remember what the book was, but it was about this like woman or young girl who dies of yellow fever, and then her ghost like lingers with her family, and it's like this whatever tale. That book has haunted me to this day.
Yeah.
Like he describes like how her mom like looks in the mirror and sees her and I'm like, I still am scared that I'm going to see her. And then like years later.
Which, no, it's funny because like, yeah, you're saying that, and then Stephen King. So I recently watched the movie, The Longest Walk, which I think, I don't know. I watched it because I was like, that is
you said that, and what came to my mind was A Walk to Remember.
Oh my God. Totally different. Yeah. Imagine like thinking you're going to watch one. And then, and I remember, well, I watched it, obviously, I mean, from my memory from when I read it when I was like 13, it was still better reading it. But yeah, I was like, so I literally watched it like this a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, who was letting 12-year-old me read this books? Because this one is about like, it's very like Hunger Games, 100 kids, you know, always have to walk. And like, only one survivor at the end, you
Oh
know,
my
and you get shot if you
gosh.
go like below 3 miles an hour. Anyway, but I was remember like one of my
It's
core
intense.
memories of like, and it wasn't in the movie. I think I watched the movie just to see this part, but it was like one of the kids had 100 pennies in one side, and so each time that one of the kids like died, he would pass one penny
Oh.
to the other
Oh.
side, and I don't know why it's one of those things that like you're like I don't
Just
remember like something about like
stays.
this book. I don't even remember the book title, but I remember that. And for
Yeah.
me, I remember that from The Longest Walk that I was just like the guy with the pennies, and I didn't remember the ending. But I don't know. I just think that's why I just love reading too. And a lot of people sometimes, or you know, will always ask me like, "Oh, what's your favorite book about?" Or you know,
Mm-hmm.
what's like that one because like you read a lot, and I'm like, sometimes I forget, but like there's just something about
Yeah,
everything that
little
just
things that
stays.
I
And,
agree.
Um,
Have you actually answered that question here yourself?
no, which is my. Uh,
Yeah, your turn.
yeah. I don't know. See, that's why I'm like it's so hard. I
Mm-hmm.
think I would say Slaughterhouse 5 by Kurt Vonnegut.
Okay.
Um, it's my first tattoo, and I think you would enjoy it so much because it's
I
very.
read it
Oh, you did
a
read
while
it?
ago
Okay.
though. Honestly, it would be worth a reread.
It's
But I
just
did love the style. Like
yeah.
he's kind of whimsical and
It's just
like
cynical,
yeah.
anti-war, aliens, you know, time continuum, you know,
Mm-hmm.
synchronicity, whatever. I think with Diego, I talked about this a lot. Well, not a lot, but just within this book, he also explores the concept of genders, and so he says the aliens know that the human race has like 16 different genders.
Wow.
Yeah,
I need to reread this
and
then because
so
I don't
anyway,
remember
not
that part
saying,
of
but
it.
like
Yeah.
it just like the thing about reading, you know, like it takes you into a different world, and
Mm-hmm.
I had never thought of that, you know, like people that are like, you know, women that aren't able to have kids, that's its own gender, or like, you know, I don't know, it just explains it differently, and he says, in the way that it goes, it's just like different compounds allow for kids to be created, you know, for, you know, procreation and whatever. And so like
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have one of those compounds with it, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like I just love a book that like explores new themes,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I love just like literary fiction because like it's always, you know, talking about
Yeah.
um different ways. I think that's why it would be my favorite. But it also it's just like it's so many. I feel
Yeah.
like the book that I give out the most is Dutch House.
You
I think
get yeah, you had me read it.
I had
By
to
the
read it. I
way,
think I gave it to your sister. Yeah.
yeah, you put me on and I really liked it. I ate it up really fast and then I recommended it to a friend
Uh-huh.
and she has fallen in love with Anne Patchett.
I
And
love
yeah, and she always texts me when she's reading her because she just came up with a new book, Wolf
I don't
something.
know. Yeah,
And
I
my
haven't
friend
read
went to her book like signing in Seattle.
Oh my god. Dude,
Yeah.
I'm getting chills because
Yeah.
it's like
No, and
it's
that's
because of me.
that's all you.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's funny because she credits me with Anne Patchett because of the Dutch House, but she's now
Oh.
had like but I do love that about any sort of media or art, you know, is that
Yeah.
you get to share this way and you have no idea. This is a
Like
completely
the impact.
different
Yeah, no.
yeah. But the first one of my first kind of experiences of realizing like how easily you can just like share these, you know, and how your impacts you might never know,
Uh-huh.
you know, how many people, but just sharing like what you're passionate about, right? Or what your friends are passionate about. But like I said, my high school experience, you know, and it was looser. I could have a lot of friends over, whatever. But my little brother, he's always been a huge anime nerd, right?
Yeah.
Since he was really little, like huge, huge, huge. And yeah, so he would be at the house. He'd usually be watching his anime or whatever, and my parties would start. I'd kick him up or kick him off the TV, you know, like send him upstairs, whatever. A couple years like into this, you know, after I started having friends over or whatever, I'm like hanging out with one of my childhood friends since like I've known him since kindergarten, and he's like, oh yeah, like I just finally finished, you know, Naruto or whatever. And like a whole squad of these guys at my high school has been watching Naruto and a bunch of different animes, and they've now watched like 10 and whatever. And they're all like sitting at the lunch table talking about how their anime journeys, all of them, started because of coming over to my house and my little brother watching anime.
it. Yeah.
And I'm like this little 10-year-old inspired, and they still to this day are all watching animes and all these things, you know. And I'm like, that was inspired by 10-year-old Sarah.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
I love that. And I think I also like one of the things that I think, you know, you realize like what makes you you and what you're put on this earth to do. And I feel like one of the things that is just natural to me, and I think I get this from my mom so much, is just my like matchmaking abilities. And
Yeah.
not, yes, I have had like two of my best friends, like they met because of me and they're married. But also like friendships, like whenever I'm in it, like I always like to introduce people to each other. And I was thinking about this, you being here, I'm like, you and my friend Mary Beth and my friend Christy, I'm like, just the, you
Need
know,
them to,
and all of you three, well,
yeah.
both of them have their PhDs, I think, or maybe like
Ooh.
one master's, one PhD. Mary Beth has her PhD.
Baddies.
But I'm like, I just need you to, like, to get you
Yeah.
three in a room and have you guys like, I'm like, we'll do another one of these, and you guys are just, I'm just like moderating you guys as being smart.
I love you saying that though, because full two things, because that's so true. And I think you say this like in terms of friendships, relationships, whatever, but you've also brought that to me in terms of, again, books or different things, like that kind of matchmaking, like, oh, I think you are very good at that, like, oh, this song or whatever, this book, like it made me think of you and I think you're gonna love it, and you're good at that. I think
that's
like
what for me, like
recognizing
giving books is something that like,
it's a love
honestly
language,
I feel like I when someone asks me like recommend a book, I don't tend to do, you know, give the same books to people, you know, and it's like, I'm like, I need to know your aura, and then be like, all right, like what do I know about you? And
but I also love that you highlighted as like maybe a trait from your mom. We've talked a lot about my mom, my parents, you know, but your parents also have been so formative in my life, my family's life. And that's so true. That's such a, like, your mom thing to do, to be like introducing people to each other, to be making friends of like people who, you know, all these things. And also such social butterflies, your parents.
Oh, they are, which is so funny because like I think I'm the most sociable out of the three of us.
Yeah, but that's true.
Definitely.
Your brother, your sister, like Vic, Beto, and you, different levels to this game, and your parents
my parents,
in another world.
They're leagues out of like, no, like out of the, I don't know. I don't even, like, they're invited to every single wedding in El Paso, Juarez, and they are...
And they just went to a wedding in Guadalajara with my parents.
No, yeah, I'll literally just, my friends will be like, oh yeah, I saw your parents at, like, this wedding, and then they...
And my parents were only there because of the introduction of your parents
because,
making...
my parents have, like, introduced
everyone else.
a lot of, Okay, what else? What else am I missing? Oh, tell me, why are Geminis the worst? Geminis.
Well, that, first of all, is a horrible way to ask that question. Yeah, if there's anything I will do in my... no, I'm just kidding. It's funny because I'm not even that big into astrology, but I love talking about this because Geminis get the worst rep.
Yeah.
And
I'll take your word for it because I also am not very...
No.
Yeah,
like
I've told you,
it. People will be like turned off by the idea that you're a Gemini. Like I have had conversations, particularly with women and queer women, where you're talking like, oh, what are you? Oh, a Gemini? Oh, like I do not do Geminis. Like I don't date. I don't have friends that are Gemini. Like, you know, everyone's kind of thinks we're crazy. This whole two-faced thing, first and foremost, we're we have definitely multiple kind of personalities and ways and whatever, but that's what makes us so fun. And we're a little crazy
of human beings.
Exactly. You know, I can't say we're not crazy because I think that we are a little bit. We're just a little bit all over the place, but honestly I think that we have some of the biggest hearts. And I think that gets overlooked a lot in the conversations about
I totally agree.
Geminis.
I've always said Geminis, you know, Geminis.
Yeah.
They're the best. They're so kind-hearted and...
You're going to be the first person on the internet to say this. But no, I think we are. I think, you know, again, I don't really know much about astrology and I've never followed it that much about anything. But I do identify really strongly with everything that, like, the characteristics of Gemini. Yeah. It's like this whole, you're very adaptable, you know, and you can throw me anywhere and I'll have a conversation with absolutely anybody. Yeah. And the whole curiosity, you know, like, and I love that. I think that curious people advance, you know, our ways of thinking and things. And again, I think that we miss out on the fact that Geminis have really big hearts too. So.
I agree.
So yeah, I'm here to fight for you, Gemini.
We're starting, you know, we'll go.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Do you have anything that I missed in our 2 hour long conversation? I'm like, I feel like because I loved everything about this. I know when we started, we're like, oh, I don't know if we'll be able to, and then,
I
yeah.
no, I had no doubts. No, I know I'm a talker. That's also part of being a
I
Gemini.
know. Well, and I also, it's just us, I feel like we
Yeah,
could just continue, like the whole road trip we're gonna do, it's gonna be just,
a continuation.
yeah.
Check it. Yeah, part two.
We'll record it and it'll be like a note.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think about me, something that maybe gets missed sometimes is like my level of community engagement. I
Mm-hmm.
focus a lot on kind of the professional aspects and my research and school and whatever. But recently, I've been working with Amanecer People's Project, and that's an amazing organization that's been really working hard on the whole data center issue in El Paso.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of that work. We just had our first Eco Fest last week. They trusted me in co-leading this event. And we had something like 100, 150 people show up. We were able to raise a bunch of money for this. And we invited a bunch of environmental organizations, which part of the conclusion of my thesis was how difficult it is to get people to engage with the environment, especially in somewhere like El Paso, that's the desert. People like to think of the environment as green and these kind of traditional spaces, somewhere like Seattle. And so a lot of the times the desert really gets lost in that, and we forget that it's beautiful and that it has so much to offer and that it's really unique, and also has really important flora and fauna, that are contributing to nature in their own ways. And we forget that a lot. And so I really appreciate the organization, and I appreciate all the work I've been able to do with them. And yeah, I guess just a shout out to the nonprofit world in El Paso Juarez. I think it's some of the most badass people I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And something that gets left out in the conversation about border communities, and I will stress this everywhere I go from here on out in my life, is how neglected they are. Because we talk about the border in terms of border security, we talk about migration, we talk about illegality and these things that are important. But in doing so, we forget about border communities, and they're some of the most underfunded and underinvested communities in the entire nation. We fall behind in terms of literacy rates, in terms of educational attainment, in terms of median income. We have some of the lowest rates of like health care and health insurance. And to fill those gaps, there are all these really incredible organizations across Paso del Norte and across the border. And so we have some of those people in our family. And I think that the border, if anything, has changed my life in so many ways. And that's one of the things that I've been so grateful to experience, is that level of community. And the nonprofit world, again, is just so strong. So many people picking up the slack of maybe government neglect and such. But it's not to romanticize it. There's obviously so many issues still and everything. But I want to, say that everywhere I go, that, border communities are really special and really are deserving of more attention and recognition for the amazing work that goes on there.
Yeah. Well, and I'm so happy for you that you're doing something you're so passionate about, and found a community to do it with.
Yeah.
And that it's my hometown.
I know.
I don't know. I feel like growing up, if you had told me that, like, I would end up being elsewhere and you in El Paso.
People say that all the time. Coming from Seattle, people would be like, "You're going to El Paso? Like, why?" And again, I've had the privilege of traveling so many places in my life and being in so many beautiful cities. And I think El Paso is the best city in the world.
I love that for you.
Yeah, it's El Paso Juarez, is so unique.
And that's what
so
I've been
special.
saying. Like, to me, anytime they're one city, like, it's just together.
Yeah, and that's not the reality for everybody. Of course, it's so complex, but that's what makes it so beautiful, and it's the mountains, the sunsets. Come on, we've got some crazy things over there, and
I know, being away from the mountains, every time I go back, I'm like, how did I take this for granted?
Like, and growing up in such different places, like physically and geographically, Seattle, and going back to the desert and everything, I think give me like an even bigger appreciation for all of it, right? But it's so beautiful. And again, my boyfriend and I always say that, like, oh, best city ever, and people are like, that's crazy. Like, that is,
I mean, like, I love it.
Yeah. My friends will just, they kind of do the like, Okay, honey.
I feel like that's also my friends also tell me like you're the only one that speaks like nice things about Houston. Like everyone, I was like, I love Houston. Like I've loved every city that I've lived in. You know.
You know, I had a friend tell me recently because I was talking about the PhDs and then I'm applying like all over the country and all these things and we were just talking about that and she was like, you're someone who's gonna love wherever you are though, and she's like, I'm not concerned about where you're going to end up because I know that you'll fall in love with wherever you are. And I think you're kind of like that too, that it's like, it's like the people, the place, whatever, and it's history. If you just invest a little bit in that, like it's hard not to fall in love with a place.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm a lover girl of people and places.
Fangirl.
Fangirl. Yes. Okay, before I ask my last question, I want us to show the world our merch. Obviously, M&B collections forever. But yeah, we have our first Chats with Maritz little,
Wow.
merch, some mugs. So for my next guests, I'll have a little gift
next time I hope to have a t-shirt.
Yes. I feel like, that'll be the next one. But I just haven't decided on unofficial logo for it.
Yeah.
Like this one was just, a couple of what's the webpage? Canva? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I just, went in there and I was like, got a couple of different options. But I'm like, I need to design my own logo.
I was actually thinking it would be cute to have like coffee while you're here, whatever. It's perfect.
Perfect. Okay. Well, for my last question is, how do you want to be remembered?
I think everything I've talked about is, the legacy that I want to leave. And I feel glad to know that I think that I'm on a trajectory that will hopefully get me there. But I want to be remembered as curious and intelligent, that I did what I could to find answers to the difficult things in this world. And I say this often to like my older professors and just older mentors and whatever, that they've done so much in the times before us, but I think that our generation, we're faced with unprecedented challenges and really difficult levels of world catastrophe and environmental degradation and polarization, right? And these are really complex issues, and I think it's up to our generation and the next generations to be able to fix that, right? And through that, I think we're going to find a more beautiful world, like one way or another, because we're going to have to. And so I think that is really the challenge of our generation. And I just want to be remembered as a part of that in whatever capacity I can contribute to, a little bit more peaceful, a little nicer place, a little better air out there.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I love that. Well, thank you, Annie.
Thank you.
Thank you for being my guest number 4 on the podcast, and hope to have you more because we have a lot more to say.
Yeah.
It's like our never ending.
I know. No, thank you for having me. And I'm so proud of this podcast. I think it's awesome. And I think I told you this already, but most people, when they go on their creative ventures and whatever, it's to highlight maybe like already wealthy and famous people and whatever. And I love that you're highlighting these people in your life that obviously we've all found success in our own ways, but that we're relatively normal people.
Yeah.
And highlighting the highs and lows that comes with that. And I think that helps us remember the beauty of being normal and, just working your way through this little life. So
yeah,
I love Chats with Maritz.
Yay! Number 1 podcast in your heart. Alrighty, bye.